You're listening to Lyfe and Shyt. I'm Danielle Walker.
And I'm Tommy Walker.
Join us as we talk about our journey overcoming fears, boundaries, marriage, family, lifestyle, business, and whatever other shit you can think of.
We're individuals that came together to create one unit with one mind and one goal. What's up, girl?
What's up, baby?
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am outstanding.
That's what's up.
I got a question for you.
Got a question for me.
What does failing forward mean to you?
Failing forward. Well, me, like most people, I was not prepared to handle failure. And when failure hit me, it hit me pretty hard. But learning and going through, and I have learned that as long as I fail forward, I'm learning. So failing forward means that each time you fail, you learn something. Failing backwards would be if you never learned and you just kind of stewed in it and never, ever were able to move on from it. So failing forward to me means moving on from failure.
Okay. So not getting stuck.
Not getting stuck.
And it's funny you said you haven't been trained for failure.
Right.
Like that's real shit. You know what I mean? It's like nobody's trained for failure. If you think back to school days, right? It's either you get a certain percentage, and if you got below that percentage, it was like, for me back in the days, it was 65. If you got 65 or lower, then you was a dumbass, basically. You failed.
Yeah.
And then anything above that, you technically are successul.
Yeah, that's true. And even back in the days with sports, nowadays our kids, they play on these teams and everyone gets a participation, like a reward, right? So it's virtually giving these kids no room to fail because they don't want the other kids to feel like failures or like you lost, and we all had the team effort, you know what I mean? But I remember losing volleyball games and we were crushed. Basketball games, we were crying, you know, but we failed. We were not successful at winning those games. But it was a tough and hard lesson learned, but we learned it.
Yes, sports is a great way to learn about failure. Like that is huge. And it reminds me back when I played baseball that one time, and we played like I'm a big football fanatic when it came to playing it. And when I got into baseball, we lost every game. Like that was so humbling. At that point, I realized this might not. It wasn't like it wasn't the sport for me, but I was like, this might not be the sport for any of us.
We're not good at this.
Because basically everybody that played baseball played football together, and it was like, yo, let's stick to what we're good at.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, but it's those hard lessons you got to learn.
And it's funny because we talked about the grades, and when we were in school, you were able to get a D, right? D was like you were right on the cusp. Yeah. They got rid of D's. Like when our kids was in school, there was no D's.
They almost got rid of the A B the A to the D.
Yeah. We were like we was looking at stuff like it was color coded. It was like, the hell is me? You green.
It was like stars. It's like you get 1 star, 3 star. Like 1 star is still an F in my book, so you still getting in trouble.
You still ain't good enough. And they still ain't teaching you how to fail.
It's all nice and furry and fluffy now. You know.
So this episode is about failing forward, and as I asked Danielle about what does failing forward mean to her, I read a book. It's called Failing Forward. It's by John Maxwell. It was a great book, and he really discussed about using the mistakes that you made as stepping stones of success. And one thing that I realized in my lifetime is failure is inevitable. Some people get a little cocky, like, oh, I never failed. And I used to be like that too. I was like, nah, I never failed at anything. Like maybe some things didn't go my way, or maybe I got into something and felt like it wasn't meant for me. But if you actually really think about it, all those excuses you put in your head was all because of failures.
Right. Your fear of it, right? You didn't want to get into it. That's true. And now I didn't read the book, but I did do a Blinkist. And the Blinkist, if for those of you that don't know, it's kind of a blink or a wink at of a book.
Love Blinkist.
So it's where if you were to download it and read it in Kindle, it would take you probably about 5 hours or so. But in Blinkist, it's going to give you the meat of the book in about 13 seconds or minutes. But anyway, the fear of failure has paused me and kept me from doing many things. Is one of the things that I learned in that book, that there's this fear of failure, right? So it's like I wouldn't even try things because it's like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I don't know if I'm going to be good at it. And therefore, I pause and don't even attempt to do these things. So to me, that's crazy. And then failure even opens up new opportunities is one of the things that I learned from the book as well. Because if and when you fail at one thing, it gives you the opportunity that you never would have had before, you know. And I'll give a great example of it. One of my jobs I was fired from.
I like how you said it. You said that so nonchalantly. One of my jobs that I got fired from.
It hurt. It hurt. I was sad. I was a supervisor.
Getting fired is not a fun thing.
No,
I've only been fired one time in my whole life, and it sucked because I was on the verge of quitting, but they fired me before I was able to quit. So that made me. I think I was even more hurt. Yeah, I was even more hurt because I was like, they got me by a day.
Like I was gonna quit anyway.
Exactly, but it was like you can't fire me. I should have pulled it. You can't fire me. I quit. And they looked at me like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. Well, then, as an employer now, but as an employee then, I knew too, like you get fired, you rather get fired than quit because then at least you get unemployment while you look for another job. Go ahead and fire me.
And you know what's funny is I didn't even think about unemployment. Like I was like, shit, I lost my job. I need to go find another job. Like the things that because I was always, working. So unemployment, I didn't know anything about that at the time.
I was like, what is this? What is this? Yeah. But due to me being fired from that job, I went into the medical field, and I was devastated because I didn't have this position, and I felt on top of the world when I got it, and even in the midst of that position, I went through tons of failures. Even learning the job, I was like, I can't do this; it's too hard,
I remember that. Yeah, you was in a weird spot. You was definitely in a weird space.
And then finally, I owned it, and then shit just went crazy. So, but it was all for the best. I would have never gotten into the medical field. I would have never gotten, and then even in the medical field, I was unable to secure a medical assistant position. So I failed there, but because I wasn't able to, I was able to get an MRI position, which I won. So, I learned. They felt like they sucked at the time, but they were a benefit.
Yeah, they definitely a benefit. I remember going through all of that with you and trying to coach you in and be like, babe, like it's not that big of a deal. You gotta look, you didn't go to school for this. Like they're giving you a great opportunity. Just get at it. Like nobody's really judging you. You had some cool bosses at the time.
I did.
So it was definitely a weird space, but at the same time, an interesting opportunity, right? And I was like, yo, you gotta make the best of it.
Yes.
Whatever the best of it is. And I want to ask you this question, but I'm gonna get back to it because I want to get into how different CEOs kind of failed and stuff like that. But I want you to think about it while I'm talking about CEOs. Is at what point did you realize that you were failing and you need to learn how to fail forward? Because it's one thing that, coming up, like failing forward, even if you're listening to this right now, you're like, well, what the fuck does failing forward mean?
Right.
But there's some point in life that triggered you to say, you know what, I got to just keep moving, or I got to take this as a lesson and learn from it and keep rocking and rolling. So, as you think about that, one of my favorite CEOs, because I used to work for this guy, Fred Smith. Fred Smith is the founder of FedEx Express, and it's one of my favorite stories. Is at one point when he first started FedEx, if you know FedEx, Fred Smith's history. He created he came up with the idea in school, and his teacher told him it was a stupid idea, it would never happen. Like you can never get a package from East to West Coast overnight, whatever the case may be, guaranteed, and it's free if it doesn't. So of course it sounds silly in the 70s where you don't even have that capability. Yeah. But he ran with it, launched it, and of course something that, that crazy idea, if you want to call it, it took a while for him to get to where FedEx is today. Like he almost lost it. And then the story says that he went and gambled. It was like $5,000, the last $5,000 he gambled, won, was able to make payroll, right? He was, so being on the verge, and that's something that we know very well.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Right.
can't even imagine.
When you have a company and things are like when you up against the ropes on your Muhammad Ali against the ropes and you can't make payroll, or payroll is like, damn, like we gotta make payroll. Like we're coming out of our own pockets and making payroll.
Payroll wipes you out.
Exactly. So now I'm talking. This is Danielle and I's story. Like we've been there to where a few months, like damn, we just barely made payroll. Barely. So, and of course, if we're barely making payroll, that means we're not taking anything from the business, and that means we're coming out of our pockets. And so,
but it feels damn good to make payroll.
Oh shit! As long as you make payroll,
I don't care.
Everything else, I don't pay any other bill.
I don't care.
As long as my employees get paid.
Yep.
So that's where Fred Smith was. Apparently, he was at that point, and he made a bet, won, and then took that money and then never looked back, and FedEx is what it is today, right?
Okay, yeah.
So when you think of failure, like, so did he really fail, or was he just in a predicament, right? That, you know, he was like, man, what am I going to do? But it's one of those things where he just kept moving forward. And there's other CEOs like that.
Yeah, and I have a couple as well, like Bill Gates, who was a Harvard dropout, right? So
hold up, oh, he dropped out of Harvard,
and then he co-owned a business
Big
that was
failure.
called Trafo Data.
You almost made me spit my wine out. Hold up, what was
Trafo Data?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
So Bill Gates was before Microsoft.
Yep.
He had another company.
Yeah. Which was a failure, which was a huge failure. But it was it pioneered the, openings for him to start Microsoft, which now he's a billionaire because of. But he had two big failures. I mean, imagine dropping out of Harvard. I mean, your dad's like, what? No, I don't care what the hell you want to make. You're gonna get back to school, Yeah. I could see how that's crazy. And then Steve Jobs fired from his own
favorite. Yeah, that's one of my favorite stories too.
And from his own company that he built, and then it's like, oh, you're fired. What? Yeah. I couldn't even imagine going home to that. Like even I don't know if he was married or if he was on his own or whatever, but just like looking at myself in the mirror, like I would just be like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, like I went to my office. My company that I created, my work,
my stuff,
and they let me go. That's what happens when it's a publicly traded company.
And then Abraham Lincoln, who we did do a little bit of history on, so we do know a couple of facts about him. He had some failed businesses in 1831, and then from there he suffered numerous nervous breakdowns in 18. I used to keep wanting to make him be in the 19s.
Yeah, you want to make him
in
today.
the 18. It was a long time ago. 1836, he had numerous nervous breakdowns. Can you imagine that? Nervous breakdown, and he wasn't even president yet. Yeah. Then when he ran for president, which was in 1856, he lost. And then he did not win until 1861, and then he became the 16th president of the United States. So he had some huge failures before he was actually able to become president, and he was a wrestler, so that's pretty cool.
Huge failures, and now he has a statue in a holiday, right? And considered one of the dopest presidents.
Statues all over the world too.
Yeah, facts. Yeah, because even down in Mexico, they got a huge statue of
breaking the chains. Yep. I love it.
That's right. So now thinking about our own failures, and you said Abe had a nervous breakdown, and that's the trip about how our mental health kicks in different ways of life. If you look at the root cause of it, a lot of it is all because we want to be successful. A lot of our mental issues is because we want to be something for somebody else, or we have these high expectations for ourselves, and at the end of the day, it all comes down to success. And if we actually thought about, what happens more often, success or failure? Failure happens way more often.
Yeah, that's why we're afraid of it, because we fail all the damn time.
Exactly. And so now we put ourselves in these moments, and it's breakdowns, right? Now we got anxiety. Now we got depression. Now we have nervous issues. It's things like that. So we're putting too much pressure on ourselves and not really understanding that failure, like I said, it's inevitable. It happens. I think about when we had the coffee shop, our very first brick and mortar. And at the time, we knew nothing about business.
Yeah, I know.
We were just hopping in. I didn't understand finances, so my fear was the finances. I didn't want to do anything with the finances. So I was like, I don't want to mess up anything. I don't want to, I don't want us to go bankrupt. That's all I kept thinking about. is the what ifs.
Yeah, you dived right in and you did a great job with it, though.
Thank you. we currently don't have that coffee shop,
but it was not because of that.
No, you're absolutely correct. A lot of different reasons why we don't have that first coffee shop.
But the failures is a lot of the reasons why too, because there was a group of us and we were failing to trust each other. We were failing to depend on each other, and because of those failures, it just didn't work.
Very true. And then go back to our very first company together was our entertainment company, right? And some days we have parties and it'd be 300-400 people at the party.
Truth.
And some days we have parties and it'd be 30 people at the party.
Yeah.
So that, like, we learned a lot in that. And every party where if it wasn't 300 to 400 people, at the time, I was like, oh, we failed because we didn't reach a certain dollar amount.
Right.
But then over time, after being in the business for so long, I was like, well, we won because people showed up and they're happy.
Yeah, because people look at that and say 30 people. Come on, 30 people. That's a lot. That's a party right there. But 300 now, that's a profit.
Yeah, exactly.
So 30 is a party, but 300 is a profit. And believe me, each night was just as long and it was just
1,000%.
it was just as much going on. So either way, we did the same amount of work.
That's very true. But in those moments, though, I wasn't thinking about like, oh, we failed or how do we move forward from this? It was because we were just in the shit. It's like when you in the shit, you don't think about it.
That is true.
We didn't take time to look at it and reflect like, all right, this is where we went wrong. It's just like, no, just keep going. Fuck that one. Let's keep going.
That's a great thing to reflect on. One, I'm not sure if everyone would know what in the shit means.
No, probably not. I'm always making up some crazy shit. When you in the shit, that means you're working so hard you don't even see from outside. Like there's no outside looking in. Like people always say that we work hard. It's like, no, we don't work hard. We just doing what we do because we're inside. But from the outside, if I tell you what's going on, you probably say, oh man, you guys work too damn hard. Yeah. Do you take a break? And it's like, yeah, I take breaks. Here and there.
It is. That's very, very true. We're definitely in the shit all the time, and things happen so quickly that we don't have time to even prepare or to dwell on, even if it's a good thing or if it's a bad thing. It's like, oh, okay, we got married. Okay, next. All right. Oh, now we're gonna do this. You know what I mean? It's like we get it in, we go, and we get it out, and that's it.
So, at what point did you start to realize failing forward was the best thing for you?
So I would definitely say it was after I started working as an MRI technologist, and I just kind of did a reflection back and seen all the different ways that I'd failed, where I was like, okay, I think I didn't really look at it. I wasn't that like, oh, this is why I'm successful now. I wasn't really quite there. It would be more so once we became business owners ourselves, and then had the coffee shop, and then it failed, and then feeling like it was a failure, but then knowing all the successes that we had because of it, that I really felt good. So I think that was when I really felt okay with failure. The yoga studio was a huge one, where it's embarrassing, and that's when I learned that failure is.
That's you do not like talk about that yoga studio. I talk about it like hey. So talk about it. What was the yoga studio?
So one thing about the yoga studio was it didn't work. Nothing worked, right? I changed the schedule. I changed the teachers. I changed the structure. I even changed the damn building and how it looked on the inside and where everything was going to go and how the flow of it was going to go. And it just did not work. Nothing I did worked. I tried different ways to work with the person who I was working with. That didn't work. Nothing worked. So that's why I don't like talking about the yoga studio so much, because I feel maybe I kind of gave up on it, but I worked my ass off to try to make it happen. And then I walked away from it, and it felt like a huge hit on me. So much so I didn't even want to teach yoga anymore.
Yeah, true. You learned a lot from it, and so it was a failure in not only business, but it was also a failure in relationships.
Yes,
and that's a whole nother part of failure. It's like failing in relationships, and it could be it doesn't have to be a loving relationship, like a sexual relationship, or boyfriend, girlfriend, marriage, or whatever, and even just in a partnership or a friendship, because you was friends first.
Yeah, definitely. The failing in relationships is just even friends that you've had in your life, and then things happen, and you don't want to really lose friends. There's no point in losing friends, so you try to hold on to those relationships. But sometimes this, maybe you just weren't enough for that person, or you didn't give enough, or that person wanted more of you than you were able to give, and then you just got to walk away. And then even in that, then you realize that you learn from it, and it's not that you failed at that relationship, but you succeeded at learning someone and moving past and going to the next thing.
Yeah, for me, I feel like I learned about failing forward. Legitimately, it came in when I read this book, but before that, it was just one of those subconscious things. Like I wasn't consciously doing it. It was just like, all right, I just have to keep moving forward. I learned something from this, so therefore, it gave me a strategy to keep moving forward. So if I didn't get a promotion, then I failed, because it was like I went to the interview. Somebody beat me in that interview because somebody got the promotion. It wasn't like nobody got the job.
Right.
So I failed in that interview. All it did was give me more strategies of how I could be better. And it was like, all right, I didn't get what I wanted, so let me level up. And every time I just kept leveling up to where when I start doing things, the fear of it was two fears: fear of failure and a fear of success.
Yeah, start
messing with
me. Yeah,
and as we talk about failure and the fear of it, the fear of success goes right along with it. They go hand in hand.
Yep.
And we had it was a podcast we had with Miles Aaron, and he discussed that fear of just basically self-sabotaging yourself, and that's huge when it comes to failure. It's you get so used to failing that you're like, all right, now I'm winning. How do I not win? So, how do I get to a point where I don't win so much?
Right. Yeah, I don't want people looking at me this way or that way, or you get comfortable where you are in your failure. You're absolutely right. And it's funny you talk about promotions, like, oh man, I went for so many promotions and didn't get, or, got some or didn't. But I mean, I never thought of it as failure, though. I was just like, oh, I didn't get this one.
Another one bites the dust.
Yeah.
Another one bites the dust.
Oh, man. And then I'd be like looking for the next promotion that they had. I was like, it wasn't me, damn it. I was my best self. It was just that someone just happened to be, better, or they knew the person, or, that's just the way it was. But I never thought that was like, oh, shit, I sucked. No, I was just like, oh, well,
Yeah. So it's like, all right, so we kind of teach our kids that now. So it's like thinking of our family background, right? And when it comes to failing and understanding failure, it doesn't matter what your family background is like, as far as, if you have a great family and everybody cohesiveness and they're communicating and, they're this perfect, white picket fence, green grass family. It doesn't matter if you come from there or you come from, a single mom or a single dad. At the end of the day, it's all a mental thing, right? So if you came from a broken home, failure or success, there's no distinguishing on how well you deal with it. None of us are taught how to deal with failure. So we try and teach, even today, we try and teach our kids like, yo, this is like, no matter what, you fail, keep going. We try and push them and give them, like I say, I like to give them the game.
Yes.
I'm giving you the game. And if you look at our podcast where we talk about dysfunctional families, no matter what your family looks like, if we're going to give you the game, this is the stuff that you ain't learning in school.
Win.
That's it.
Win.
And winning is hard.
Yeah.
Winning is so hard. So it ain't about how good your family is or if you came from a broken home. It ain't about wealth if you came from money, because, we just seen the other day, we watched that King Richard with Serena and Venus. Like, that's a great story. You know what I mean?
Yes,
where this Serena and Venus came from, wealth wasn't in that picture.
Compton is the opposite of the white picket fence. It's just they lived in a house that just ain't had no fence in it.
They had a fence. It was to try and keep the people on the outside of that fence, but sometimes it don't work that way. That's 1,000%. So coming up with the mental, the mindset to get over those failure humps is imperative.
Yeah, it definitely is. And now when our children go through things and they really beat themselves up like I sucked and I failed and I didn't make it and I wasn't successful and I didn't do what I was supposed to do. I feel it's always important to let them know like this is just a trial that you have to get through, and it depends on how you respond to whatever is happening to you to how you are at the end. So whatever the ending of it is, it's like, so if you are going through a trial or if you're failing and you are like, fuck everybody, everyone sucks, and you're a total bitch the whole entire time, then at the end of it, you're not going to learn the lesson. You know what I mean? But if you're going through something and you're like, you know what, this is just a little something I'm going through, I'm going to keep a smile on my face the whole time that I'm going through it, then at the end of it, you'll see the benefits.
Yeah, that's true. And that's a very mom approach that you just gave. Because if when I talk to the kids and if something didn't go their way, my first thing is, well, how hard did you study? Or how hard did you plan? What was, like, did you show up? Mm-hmm. And if you showed up, and you proved, like, you tell me like, oh yeah, I did X, Y, and Z. Nobody was more prepared than me. Whatever the case was, mm-hmm. and you still didn't make it. Then I say, okay, cool. Now what'd you learn from that? Mm. But 9 times out of 10, they didn't show up.
It's true.
And if you don't show up, and I'm talking about everybody. If you really think about it, like, did you go in there and did you like? Who cares who's looking, who's judging? Did you give it everything you got? Mm-hmm. And if you could tell yourself, if you could look in the mirror and say, I did give everything I got, then what's the next strategy? What's the new strategy? Mm-hmm. And if you didn't, if you could look yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, I did not give it all I got. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do different?
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's how you fail forward. Now, being stuck in failure, and that's when the depression and anxiety come in, and then that's where
falling back.
Yeah, and then that's when you don't want to. You like, oh, I don't want to do this. I want to get out of it. I think about the time where we tried a lot of different things, mm-hmm. and the reason none of it flourished is because of me personally, my failure to double down and understand the business that we're in, and understand what success was. So from the clothing line to the entertainment company to where we were selling lotions and potions and pills, all of this stuff, I never took the time to study the industry and the market that we were in, mm-hmm. study our competition, study our clients and our customers, and really get good at what we were doing. Mm-hmm. If anything, it was like, oh, well, this is easy. Let's just get out here and do it. And mm-hmm. it's like, nah, I'm not going to do that. Same thing in coffee. Like, we didn't study anything. We just opened up a coffee shop, mm-hmm. and the neighborhood, just was like, oh, this is dope. And they got behind us, and mm-hmm. it was great. So like you said, we did have a lot of successes in it. But the ultimate failure was that we no longer had that coffee shop.
Right. And one of my things is always to have fun. So it's, you feel like you failed because you didn't look at, the business and do the research. And me, I was just like, let's have fun, do this and have a good time,
Yeah, you do. I mean, like, it's not about that.
If it's not fun, then I don't want to do it, And, but that is one of the things that you always ask us when we first started our new business. It's not so new anymore. We've had it for about 3 years, going 3 years now. But you'd always say, are you having a good time? Are you having fun? Are you enjoying this? And if you're not, don't fucking do it. You'd be like, don't do it then, babe. Do something different. Do something that you enjoy.
I had to learn that, but so I had to practice what I preached, right? Because in the beginning, not in the beginning, but in our past endeavors, it was fun, but it was very surface fun. You know what I mean? It was on the surface. I was having fun because when it was time to get deep and understand it and do the hard work, put in the 16, 18-hour days, then that's when I was like, nah, I don't want to do that.
That's not fun.
Yeah. But now in this, when I said, so one of the things that helped for me was having a fuck it attitude. It was like, all right, fuck it. I'm all in. And I put in the 16-hour days, and I was like, okay, the 16-hour days are worth it.
Yeah, definitely. We figured out, or we seen, I know, at least I did myself, is that once we were able to put that, like, 6 months, you're like, okay, 6 months, we're going to bust our asses. And it's not going to be fun. Mm-hmm. It's not. You're like, but trust me, after we put in this work, then we can sit back and we can enjoy,
Yeah. And unfortunately, I told you that 6 months I said, yo, 6 months. That's what it was going to take. And then it wound up turning to a year.
Yeah. And then the next project.
Yeah, and then a new project. And then another one.
It never ends, you guys. It never ends.
But that's how I keep you from being bored. You know what I mean?
You keep me young.
That too, because you continually forget your age.
I really
continue,
do.
like with a straight face, forget your age. We was at the doctor's office. How old are you? 33. I look like I just turned 40. Like, get out of here.
I lied for so long.
For so long. It's all good.
And you always say, well, you don't know how old I am. And like, no, just because you keep aging doesn't mean I have to. I still stayed at my age.
Hey, because as a man, you get, the older you get, the wiser you get. And you kind of want to hang your hat on that wisdom just a little bit because you were so stupid as a boy.
Oh, shit. Listen, I'll tell you this. As a woman, it's totally different to age. You age gracefully and you hear all this and all that, but then them same men that are getting older, they start looking at them younger girls and making you feel like an old girl. You're like, wait a minute, like, oh shit, and then it makes you start looking at the young girls like, oh well, shit, I don't do it like that, or not me, not yet, but soon.
You ain't there yet. It's all right.
Yeah, but anywho, that's another podcast.
Oh man, one of my favorite quotes John Maxwell put in his book. He said, "Fail early, fail often, but always fail forward." You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that.
And by all means, I really don't want anybody to feel like failure is a bad thing. It's a part of the process. It's a part of the journey. It really takes a lot of patience. And when you say fail early and fail often, that means don't wait for the perfect day. That's one thing that I used to always do too. Is I'll be like, babe, we got to have all of the data. We got to have all of this. Like I wanted everything to be perfect
before
and in line before we actually launched. And now we don't do that. Instead, I have a little system that I do with the team every year. We go through this system and we look at how we could do better, right? We look at all the problems
at the end of every year, yeah.
Yep, and do a root cause analysis, and then we build, we launch, and then we take a step back and like, all right, this is how we're gonna do it going forward.
Yep.
So
build, launch, execute.
Yep. So fail early, fail often. And then that's going to help you fail forward. Like don't get stuck.
Yeah, I love it. One of my favorite quotes is from Michael Jordan, right? One of the best of all time, the GOAT. He says that I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times he was trusted to have like the game-winning shot, and 26 times he failed. Not just 26 times, because I'm sure there's like almost 9,000 times that he actually did make that shot, which is why he was trusted those 26 times.
Exactly.
But if it's me and I missed 6 of those game-winning shots, I don't know if I'd be able to do it. But, the next time I think I'd have that fear in me each time that you stepped up. But he says because of it, he failed over and over and over again in his life. But that's why he's successful.
That's probably like one of the greatest sports quotes in our time, right? Yeah. And if you're familiar with Stephon Marbury, I just watched his documentary, and that it kind of reminds me of Steph. Being from New York, Steph's from New York, and his documentary is pretty dope because it talks about how his, coming up as a kid in Brooklyn and being that kid, like he was that kid. He was the number one guard in America, all the success before he even got into the NBA. And then got into the NBA, things started to turn for him a little bit, and then eventually completely fell off the wagon. Like his NBA career was nothing compared to how he was in high school and college. So basically, if you wanted to put a failure or pass or fail on it, he probably failed in the NBA, right? He got the big contract, made the millions of dollars, but he didn't get to that championship. He didn't spend 20 years in the NBA like we're seeing what players do now. But you know what? He came back and went to China and crushed it in China, turned it all the way around, right? So look at, it's never over. Yeah. Like by all means, Steph could have said, I'm done with basketball, period, right? I'll never do it. And he could have been dwelled in it and, tried and complained about every person that was a part of the NBA. He could have complained about all that stuff. Yeah. But instead, he turned it around and won. But not even in the United States. He won in China. That's crazy.
That's crazy. And it makes me think of another person that I have my value on, and it's Albert Einstein, right? First off, the name Einstein, when you think of it, you just think genius, automatically.
Or bagels.
And his story is the reverse of Steph's, right? So Einstein didn't speak he didn't speak clearly until he was like 9. He was kicked out of schools. He was a nuisance. I believe he was born with some disease.
He's like a real life Forrest Gump.
Yeah, and then, but from then now he's just, that's amazing, right? And one of his quotes that he says is that failure is just success in the progress, and it is. It just is the success in the progress. You just have to see it that way. You have to be able to change the way that you look at it and see it in a different way. If you don't fail, then you're probably never going to succeed, because you have to try something. And once you try things, sometimes you fail.
That's 1,000% true. It's all a part of the journey. If you really look at if you got a trophy for anything, if you feel like you won somewhere, just look back, like do a little timeline until, up to that point of trophy. And you're going to see some failures in there. So, and there's a difference between the average and the achievers. The average people, they get stuck in failure. That's it. Don't be average. Be an achiever and be the one that says failure is part of the journey. It's a part of the process. My motto is every day is a lesson or a blessing. That's it. So, and a blessing not in a religious, standpoint, but a blessing is in everything I did today, I won. Or you know what? Everything I did today, and nothing came together. So it taught me something.
So it wasn't like it was a good day or it was a bad day. Each day is a good day.
Every day is a good day.
It's just about how you have, how you brought it, how you thought about it.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Exactly.
Makes
So no bad days. You know what I mean? It's a lesson day.
Yeah, I like that. That makes a lot of sense.
It's life and shit.
Life and shit. I love you.
I love you. Do us a favor. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. Leave a review. Let us know what your thoughts are. That's the only way that this show is going to be successful. And we appreciate you. Talk with you next time.